My husband asked how long I'd be gone for my father's funeral, refused to drive me to the airport, and told his mother to send me a 5-page email demanding I come home to serve him or he'd leave me. My dad passed away this week, and I still can't fully process it. It feels like I'm moving through a haze, unable to truly grasp that he's gone. My dad had been dealing with multiple health problems for quite some time. He was receiving treatment, and while we knew his health was fragile, we never imagined it would end so suddenly. She and my dad had been together for so many years, building a life and a family, and now she's left grappling with the emptiness his absence has created. The day we found out about Dad's passing, my brother David and I both dropped everything to rush home. David, being closer to home, was able to get there first. He lives just a few hours away with his wife and kids, so he quickly packed up and drove to be with Mom. I, on the other hand, live much farther away, so I had to book a flight and make arrangements before I could get there. I also told my husband about what had happened, expecting him to be supportive. But the first words out of his mouth were, "How long will you be gone?" He didn't ask how I was feeling or offer any comfort. There was no, "Are you okay?" or "Do you need me to come with you to help with the funeral or support my mom?" His reaction stunned me. His response felt cold, and in that moment, it was like he didn't see my grief or the weight of what I was going through. The morning before I left for home, I woke up really early, long before the sun was up. I wanted to make sure everything was taken care of for my husband before I left. He's very particular about his meals, almost to a fault. If I don't cook for him, he refuses to cook for himself and instead relies on takeout, which isn't just unhealthy, but also drains our finances unnecessarily. So even though I was already overwhelmed with grief and stress, I spent my morning meal prepping. I cooked and carefully packed his food for the entire week, labeling each container and arranging them neatly in the fridge. Only when that was done did I start getting myself ready to leave. Before heading out, I tried waking up my husband to ask if he could at least drop me off at the airport. I thought it would be nice to have a little support, even something as simple as a ride, but he wasn't having it. He got annoyed at me for waking him up so early and refused outright. I was hurt, but didn't have the energy to argue. Instead, I booked an Uber and quietly left the house, trying not to let the sting of his indifference get to me too much. The flight to my mom's place felt like an eternity. My nerves were completely shot, and all I could think about was my mom and how she must be feeling. When I finally arrived and saw her, I completely broke down. I couldn't hold back my tears as I fell into her arms. Seeing her was heartbreaking. She looked like a shell of the strong, vibrant woman I'd always known. The grief was etched into her face, and it was clear she was barely holding herself together. Knowing how much she's already going through, my brother David and I have taken on all the responsibilities. We arranged the funeral, splitting the costs equally between us. We've also been going through Dad's insurance papers and legal documents, making sure everything is sorted. Thankfully, my dad had always been organized and prepared for the future. He had named Mom as the rightful inheritor of their home. So at least we don't have to worry about her losing the house on top of everything else. It's been a lot to manage, but knowing we're easing some of the burden for Mom gives us a sense of purpose amidst all this sadness. As you can imagine, this past week has been overwhelming in every way, physically, emotionally, and mentally. The days have been packed with responsibilities, arrangements, and the roller coaster of emotions that come with losing someone so close. Between everything going on, my brother, my mom, and I have been spending a lot of time together reminiscing about my dad. We've shared stories, laughed through tears, and remembered the little things that made him so special. It's bittersweet, but these moments have been a source of comfort for all of us. They help us feel like he's still here in some way, living on through our memories. With all this happening, I haven't had much energy or even the mental space to keep in touch with my husband. My focus has been entirely on my family and dealing with the loss. What hurts, though, is that he hasn't made any effort to reach out either. Not even once has he called me to ask how I'm holding up or to check in on how things are going. It's like he doesn't care, or worse, that he doesn't think it's his responsibility to care. This isn't the first time he's acted this way when it comes to my family. Even in the past, he's always been indifferent, never showing much interest in my family's lives or making an effort to connect with them. But this time feels different. It feels so much worse. My dad has died, and the least my husband could do in this special, heart-wrenching circumstance is to show a little compassion. Even a simple, "How's your mom holding up?" or "Are you okay?" would have meant the world to me, but he hasn't bothered. It's hard not to feel hurt by that. To make matters worse, my mother-in-law has been calling me incessantly this week. She wasn't calling to check in or offer condolences, but to demand explanations. She wanted to know why I had gone back home for a whole week and why I hadn't returned sooner. According to her, I was neglecting my duties as a wife. I couldn't believe how my coming back home to grieve for my dad was somehow seen as me neglecting my husband. He was a grown man who could exist at least a week without me. Calmly but firmly explained to Mill that it's not like I get to visit my family often. Both she and my husband have made it difficult for me to come back home over the years, but this time was different. This wasn't a casual visit. It was because of my father's death. We are grieving, and I need to be with my mom and my brother during this devastating time. I wasn't on vacation. I was dealing with loss. But even after I explained myself, she continued to press the issue. She clearly wanted to argue, but I was too drained to go back and forth with her. I told her as firmly as I could that I was staying with my family for as long as I needed to, whether she and my husband approved or not. I made it clear that I was done with the conversation, and before she could say anything else, I hung up the phone. At the time, I thought that would be the end of it, and that she'd finally back off. However, this morning, I woke up to an email from my mother-in-law that was 5 pages long. 5 pages. I couldn't believe my eyes. As I read through it, my anger steadily grew with every sentence. In her email, she had the audacity to write about how her precious son, my husband, had been suffering in my absence, and I was basically abusing her poor son. She mentioned how the meals I had prepared before leaving were not real and nutritious, and that I needed to come back home immediately and serve him hot and fresh meals only. She even brought up how my husband had been calling her over to clean the house since he never bothered to clean up after himself. She complained that she was getting tired of picking up after him, as if this were somehow my fault. Then to top it all off, she had the nerve to tell me outright that these things, cooking, cleaning, and managing the house, were my responsibilities as his wife. She went on to say that I needed to get over my grief and return to him, as if my father's death was some trivial inconvenience I should quickly move past. And if that wasn't enough to send my blood boiling, she closed the email with a thinly veiled threat. She suggested that if I didn't come back soon, she would convince my husband to consider leaving me because, in her words, he could do so much better than me. This was like a slap in the face, one I hadn't seen coming, but that stung deeply. There wasn't a single kind or empathetic word in that entire email. No acknowledgement of the fact that I had just lost my father. No concern for how I might be feeling, just entitlement and blame, as if my grief and time with my family were inconveniences to her and her son. Normally, I would have felt pressured to rush back home after receiving such a scathing email from her. In the past, her harsh words and manipulative tactics would have worked. But today, something inside me snapped. I couldn't take it anymore. The entitlement, the lack of empathy, the constant dismissal of my feelings and needs. The fact that she had the audacity to send such an email when I was in the middle of mourning my dad was the final straw. I was furious not just at her, but at the entire situation. How dare she make this about her son's so-called suffering when my entire world had been turned upside down? For once, I wasn't going to let her guilt or shame me into abandoning my family in their time of need. Her words didn't cut the way they used to. Instead, they fueled a fire in me. I realized that I deserved better than this, better than being treated like a servant, better than being guilted for grieving my father, better than being made to feel like my needs don't matter. Just to add some context, I got married to my husband when I was really young. He's 6 years older than me. And looking back, I think that age difference has always played a role in how our relationship dynamics have unfolded. From the very beginning, he's been controlling, not in a way that's blatantly aggressive, but more subtle and disguised as concern for my safety or what's best for me. For example, he doesn't allow me to get a job. Anytime I've brought it up, he shut the idea down, saying it's unnecessary because he can take care of me financially. He insists that I share my phone location with him at all times, so he knows exactly where I am, and I'm not allowed to have male friends at all. Even when it comes to my female friends, I'm not allowed to stay overnight at their places, no matter the circumstances. He controls so much of what I do, but he always frames it as him protecting me or trying to keep me safe. I admit that over the years, I've gone along with his rules rather than standing up for myself. I don't like conflict, and I've always been a pretty shy person, so it felt easier to just comply than to argue. I've never had a large group of friends anyway, so it wasn't like I was giving up a lot socially. At least that's what I told myself. But looking back now, I realize that my quiet conflict-avoidant nature has allowed him to completely steamroll over me, dictating almost every aspect of my life. It's not just him, though. My mother-in-law is incredibly toxic too, and she's been a constant source of stress in my life. One of the biggest issues with her has been her relentless push for us to have children. She brings it up constantly, putting all the pressure on me. What she refuses to acknowledge is that the reason we haven't been able to get pregnant isn't even my fault. It's because of an issue with my husband's sperm. But instead of accepting this reality, she blames me entirely. She's gone so far as to tell me that if I were a real woman, I would have gotten pregnant by now anyway. For years, I've tried not to let her cruel words affect me. I've brushed them off or swallowed my feelings, telling myself that it wasn't worth the energy to fight her. But today, reading her email so full of entitlement, blame, and complete disregard for what I'm going through was like a wake-up call. I don't want to keep living like this. I don't want to keep walking on eggshells, letting them control my life and dictate my worth. I've been too compliant for too long, and I can't keep living in this cycle of disrespect and manipulation. I know I'm very emotional right now, and part of me is scared of making a rash decision, so I wanted to come here and share my story. Ida, if I decide to leave my husband, or am I overthinking this update one? Wow, I never expected this post to get so much attention. My phone has been blowing up with notifications ever since I shared my story. I've read so many comments from people pointing out just how toxic my marriage is and urging me to leave as soon as possible. Many of you have said things like, "You should have left yesterday." And honestly, it's been overwhelming but also eye-opening. I think I always knew deep down that my marriage wasn't healthy. But hearing so many people validate those feelings and call out the red flags has really made me reflect on how much I've been tolerating for the sake of avoiding conflict or trying to keep the peace. For those of you asking what exactly made me realize all this, I want to clarify that it wasn't just my mother-in-law's awful email. That email was definitely a breaking point. But what truly cemented everything for me was something much more personal: a letter from my dad. Let me explain. My dad always kept a diary. He had been writing in it for years, and it was one of his cherished habits. After he started his treatment for his health issues, he made it clear to us that he wanted my brother and me to read through his diary someday. I think he saw it as a way for us to feel connected to him, even when he wasn't around anymore. Since my brother and I have been sorting through his belongings and organizing everything, we decided to start reading his diaries together. That's when we stumbled upon an entry from a few years ago that felt like it was addressed directly to me. The moment I started reading, I felt a lump in my throat. It was as if my dad was speaking to me through those pages, and what he wrote broke me. In this diary entry, my dad had written about how much he missed me. He talked about how he wished I would visit home more often. He reminisced about the times we used to spend together when I was growing up, how we'd play cards in the evenings, and how much he loved those moments with me. He wrote about how he missed surprising me with little gifts and watching my face light up with joy. He even mentioned how much he missed the sound of my name coming from his own mouth, and how he longed for the times when he could call out to me and I'd come running to him full of energy and excitement. Reading his words was like a punch to the gut. I could feel his love for me in every single sentence, but I could also feel the sadness behind it. I hadn't realized just how much he missed me, how much he craved those small, simple moments that meant everything to him. And the truth is, I hadn't been around as much as I should have been. Part of that was because of how my husband and mother-in-law made it so difficult for me to visit, always finding ways to discourage or guilt me about going back home. At the end of that diary entry, my dad wrote something that has stayed with me ever since I read it. "You seem to have lost the light in your eyes. I hope you get that back soon." Those words hit me harder than anything else. My dad had always been someone who noticed the little things about me, whether I was happy, upset, or even just tired. Those words felt like he wanted to say more, to tell me outright that my relationship was toxic and dragging me down. Looking at how my husband and mother-in-law have treated me, not just over the years, but especially this past week, I can't deny it anymore. My dad was right. I have lost the light in my eyes. Their behavior has been a stark reminder of just how toxic my marriage is. They've shown me time and time again that no matter how much I do for them, no matter how much I sacrifice or give of myself, it's never enough. And the truth is, I've already wasted so many years of my life trying to please them, bending over backward for people who refuse to meet me halfway. I've spent too long letting their opinions and demands dictate my life, and I don't want to keep living this way. For everyone asking about children, yes, I want kids more than anything. I've always dreamed of becoming a mother. But as much as I want, that I'm grateful now that my husband can't have children. The thought of raising a child with someone like him, someone so controlling, dismissive, and selfish, terrifies me. Even if we went through adoption or surrogacy, I wouldn't want our child to grow up with a father like him or to be influenced by his behavior. It's not fair to them, and it's not fair to me. I owe it to my future children if and when I have them to find a better role model for them. I want them to grow up in a home filled with love, respect, and kindness. I want them to see what a healthy, supportive relationship looks like. And I know now that I can't give them that if I stay in this marriage. I need to leave this man. I need to find myself again to rediscover the light in my eyes that my dad saw fading. Update 2. Today I sat down and talked with my brother and my mom about my plan to leave my marriage. Part of me thought they might be shocked, maybe even try to convince me to give my husband another chance, especially since I had been so adamant about my love for him when we first got married. But when I finally said the words out loud that I wanted to end my marriage, they simply looked at each other for a moment, almost as if they had been expecting this. Then my mom turned to me and said, "I'm glad you're leaving that pass. He was never good enough for you. Since you were so much in love with him, we had to keep our mouths shut and just accept him." It was as though she had been holding in her feelings for years, silently watching me endure a relationship that she probably knew wasn't right for me. My brother, who's usually more reserved, also stepped in with a hug and reassured me that he and my mom would have my back no matter what. He told me I didn't have to go through this alone and that they were here for me every step of the way. My mom even went so far as to offer me a place to stay at her home, saying I could move in with her whenever I was ready. With their encouragement, I finally decided to confront my husband and my mother-in-law about my decision. I wasn't about to tiptoe around the issue or sugarcoat anything. So I set up a video call with both of them. When they joined the call, I didn't waste any time. I took a deep breath and announced straight out, I want a divorce. I'm moving out. The look on their faces was priceless. For a moment, they both just stared at me completely stunned. My husband was the first to speak, and all he could do was ask, "Are you pranking me?" He seemed to genuinely think this was some kind of elaborate joke. I looked him straight in the eye through the screen and said, "No, I'm not joking. I'm serious. I want out." That's when all hell broke loose. Both he and my mother-in-law launched into a full-blown rant, talking over each other as they tried to argue with me. They accused me of losing my mind and claimed that I was being unreasonable for wanting a divorce out of nowhere. I told both of them how I had been feeling for a long time, the toll this marriage had taken on me, and how these last few days had solidified my decision to leave. I told them that separating wasn't a decision I made lightly, but it was the right one for me. I even tried to keep my tone steady and fair despite the overwhelming emotions bubbling under the surface. But instead of listening to me, my husband immediately dismissed everything I said. His first response was to accuse me of being on my periods, as if my feelings and decisions were nothing more than hormonal mood swings. Then he outright called me crazy for even suggesting a divorce. It was infuriating to see how little respect he had for me and how quickly he resorted to belittling my emotions. He then had the audacity to demand that I pack up my bags and return home to him, saying we could talk once I was back. As if that wasn't bad enough, my mother-in-law chimed in with her own nonsense. She asked me if I was acting this way because of the email she had sent earlier. She justified that the email had been a harmless note of concern rather than the entitled, insulting rant it actually was. She had the gall to say she was only worried about her son, implying that my actions were an overreaction to her well-meaning words in the email. Then she turned the blame on me, claiming I was unnecessarily escalating the situation. She even had the nerve to tell me that I sucked at conflict management and that I wasn't thinking clearly because of my dead father. At that moment, I saw red. Their gaslighting was infuriating. Neither of them took a moment to acknowledge my pain or take any responsibility for their actions. Instead, they were determined to twist the narrative and make me feel like I was the unreasonable one. It was as if they couldn't fathom that their behavior had driven me to this decision. I realized then and there that I was truly done. I didn't need this kind of toxic manipulation in my life anymore. I made it crystal clear to them I was leaving and I was filing for divorce, whether they liked it or not. I told them that no amount of arguing, gaslighting, or guilt-tripping would change my mind. This decision wasn't up for debate. That's when my husband's tone shifted from dismissive to outright threatening. He told me that if I didn't change my mind, he would burn all my clothes and jewelry. He even threatened to throw out my work laptop and other valuable equipment in a fit of anger. His threats were a desperate attempt to regain control, but instead they only solidified my decision further. I didn't back down. I fired back and told him that if he dared to destroy or damage anything of mine, I would sue him and take him to court. I warned him that not only would he have to deal with alimony, but I'd make sure he paid for every single thing he ruined. I wasn't playing games anymore, and he knew it. By this point, both my husband and Mill were fuming. They were huffing and puffing, clearly frustrated that they couldn't manipulate or intimidate me into submission. But there was nothing they could do now. Their threats, insults, and guilt trips held no power over me anymore. I had made my decision, and I was finally taking my life back. Anyways, for everyone worried for my safety, please don't worry. My brother is a cop. He has agreed to fly back with me to help me pack up and get all my things back from my husband's place. With him there, my husband can't really do anything to me. Update 3. It's hard to believe, but it's been 7 months since I last shared an update. So much has happened since then, and I'm finally at a point where I can look back on everything with a sense of peace and accomplishment. To answer the question, many people have been asking me, yes, I have finally gotten my divorce from my ex-husband. Let me tell you, it wasn't an easy journey. It's been a long, drawn-out process that tested my patience and resilience at every turn. My ex and his mother did everything in their power to delay and complicate the divorce proceedings. They dragged things out as much as they could, throwing unnecessary obstacles my way in what I can only assume was a desperate attempt to make me give up or come crawling back. But thanks to my incredible lawyer who fought tirelessly on my behalf, I was able to see it through to the end. My lawyer handled their petty tactics with professionalism and persistence, and for that, I'm deeply grateful. Now I can finally say that I'm free from the toxicity, the control, and the unhappiness that defined my marriage. It feels amazing to finally close that chapter of my life and move forward. Through all of this, my brother and my mom have been my rock. They've stood by me every step of the way, offering me unwavering support, love, and encouragement. I don't know how I would have managed without them. Currently, I'm living with my mom, which has been such a comforting and healing experience. Being back in the home where I grew up, surrounded by my mom's warmth and care, has helped me rediscover a sense of security and belonging that I hadn't felt in years. Since getting the divorce finalized, life has felt like a breath of fresh air. For the first time in what feels like forever, I'm living for myself. I don't have to cook for anyone, clean up after anyone, or be constantly checking in on someone else's needs. I don't have to send my location updates to anyone or walk on eggshells trying to keep the peace. It's such a liberating feeling, one that I never knew I needed so badly until I experienced it. Honestly, I've come to understand why so many single women tend to live longer, happier lives. I wake up every morning without the weight of someone else's demands or expectations on my shoulders. There's no tension, no stress, no endless list of things to do for someone else. I can make decisions based entirely on what makes me happy. And at night, I sleep better than I have in years, like a baby with nothing hanging over me. Looking ahead, I'm excited about the next chapter of my life. I plan to start applying for jobs in the area soon, and the thought of building a new career for myself fills me with hope and determination. There's so much I want to achieve, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like I'm in control of my own destiny. Life feels so good right now, and I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing what happens next.